Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Namaste Grinding podcast. Okay, um, once again, we in the studio, we busy, we getting to it, we staying committed. It's all about that Namaste Grinding mindset. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe and share an episode. Drop a comment on something. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your opinions on anything we talking about. Um, we love y'all. We love y'all that continue to tap in and just support. I appreciate it so much. Tonight, you know what I'm saying? I'm super excited. I'm always really excited on here, but
That's right.
it's always really good when family comes in. So I wish I had a super long, deep, heartfelt introduction. But what's understood does not have to be explained in this scenario.
Talk about it.
My brother is here, okay? And somebody who I originally met through organization. You guys will hear me talk about the Young Professionals often. Um, my brother and I met during the Young Professionals. We're colleagues and working together with this organization, and then soon became family. It didn't take long to recognize something like that because real recognize real out here. And so I'm super excited to have Mr. Quincy Marsnik-Powe in the building. So thank you for sliding on me and coming through and making time. I really appreciate that.
Hey, I love you, my love. I got you. I got you. I'm excited to be here. I'm
Always.
excited. You know how we do. Get into our conversations, and I'm excited to be here in this space and really talk about I'm a stay grinding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was I gonna say? I be forgetting. Sometimes I just because I get so excited.
I already know what you mean.
Like I get so excited, I'm just like I just want to say everything at one time.
In the moment, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
But really, you missed a namaste grinding. Like you got some namaste grinding moments. So when I was thinking about my lineup and thinking about who I want to bring on, definitely you were in there because us just talking and vibing. Like earlier, we was talking and vibing. We had to cut the conversation off. Like we got to stop. We was like, yo, we got to stop. We got to save this for the episode because it's real.
Yeah, it is real.
Yeah.
It's real life.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you understand the concept of what the namaste grinding moment is.
Yeah.
You know, like,
You helped me understand that concept.
I mean, yeah, yeah, for sure. Because, like, I feel like we live it every day. And for some reason, I feel like I surround myself with people who are always going through that. Nah, I'm going to stay grinding, or who have really been through the thick of it. You know, they really have something to say and that somebody else could really use.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, I don't want to say like other podcasts or anything like that, but like when I watch podcasts, I like to try to watch podcasts that I can take something from.
Yeah.
So that's what inspired this too. Like, no, I know a lot of people who have a lot of good gems and a lot of good stories
That's right.
that need to be shared.
Talk about it.
I mean, no, you talk about it.
Okay, look, you know what I'm saying? That's what we here for. That's what we here for.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh my goodness, I totally forgot to have you introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. You can introduce yourself professionally. I introduce you the way I love you and the way I know you.
Yeah.
So please feel free. Please let them know what you do professionally.
Yeah, you know what it is. You know how we do. It's
Mm-hmm.
about that love aspect first. We gotta dive into that first. But yeah, my name is Quincy. Quincy Marsnik-Powe. Professionally, I work in nonprofit, and outside of that, I do some contractual work, and still in the same work, strategic operations, really helping people. I would say not helping people, partnering with people on strategic operations, being thought partners on how do we shift the needle when it comes to homelessness, or how do we shift the needle when it comes to narratives that are negative narratives that are made about communities that don't fit those communities and that limit and block different resources. So I love my job. I love the work that I do. It's awesome. I get to work with a lot of young people, a lot of different adults, and a lot of people in different areas of life. And then, born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, lived in California for a couple of years, came back home. I love my community. I mean, I love traveling too, just kind of being all over. But yeah, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like what I do. I like being in the community, and I love being black.
Amen.
You know
Amen.
what I'm saying? At the end of the day,
At the beginning of the day.
that's true.
Like,
That's true. All day, every
all-
day. Okay,
You
you're right.
know it? All
You're
day,
right.
every day.
You're right.
I'm black, 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 black. Okay, so don't get me started. But yeah, like, so you do all that, but you're also a good friend.
Yes.
You're also a shoulder. You're also an amazing sounding board.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah,
And all the volunteer work that I do that I did not mention as the Urban League Young Professionals,
yeah,
who
he
I
really
love
trying to
dearly.
be
Like,
humble right now. That's the vice president of the Urban League Twin Cities Young Professionals, y'all, who we got in the studio right now.
hey, gratitude, gratitude. That's love.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. Appreciate you,
Mm-hmm.
boss.
Yeah. So like and just everything that you do, and and he's a student.
That's true.
A student, like,
Scholar out here.
you know, a scholar. There you go. Can be together.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a lot.
And that's a part of my namaste grinding moments. You
Mm.
know, that educational journey and just being back in that moment of continuing to journey on.
Mm. Did that come full? What do you mean? Explain that. Did it come full circle for you, or
You know,
what do you
like
mean by being back?
when I was younger and when I was in school, high school, middle school, I would say like beginning high school, middle school, younger, I never really had any problems with school or struggles per se. And I think there was a lot of things that I was ignorant to. I didn't recognize because I think there are some things that young people should be ignorant to, and shouldn't have to navigate or hold. And so I think that was there's a lot of that happening. And so at school, I never like struggled per se, but as I started to get a little bit older and started to have to do things on my own and show up a lot more in different ways I didn't really anticipate, started to struggle in that area. So right after high school, I didn't go to college, and then when I wanted to get back into that realm, it was hard. It was not easy, and I felt really discouraged and kind of defeated. And I was like, I'm not gonna do college. It's not my pathway. Maybe that's just not my not my charge. And so I'm gonna find a different way, which was something within itself, right? But I think through that, I did realize it's not that it's not for me. It's really that I was navigating so much that those things didn't really allow me to show up or enjoy it in the way that I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, coming back full circle, I'm now a student again, and I'm able to be successful in the ways that I wasn't able to be successful before. And I'm able to recognize those areas and those different things that are at play that maybe make it hard for those things to happen, and I'm able to navigate those a lot easier. Not that those barriers don't exist sometimes, because they absolutely still do, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm more capable, and I have a lot more of that knowledge. I'm less ignorant to some of the things coming at me.
What were some of like the biggest barriers that you probably faced when you were younger, opposed to like now coming back?
Oh, with school, I would
Yeah.
say like the lack of support was one of the biggest barriers. I didn't realize how much support I needed. I
Mm.
didn't realize how much support I didn't have. Full stop. I had some amazing people in my life supporting me. My mom, my grandma, and I think at times they were absolutely enough, and at times they couldn't do everything themselves and show up themselves to everything. And so I think that at the moment I was totally fine with that. Once I started to get into like college and the later years in high school, I started to realize that I needed that and I longed for it, and I didn't really know how to get that or ask for it or have those conversations. And so I struggled with that support system, and like the support system I felt like I needed, if that makes
Mm.
sense, to be successful,
That
to
makes
get through
sense.
those things. And I think that another barrier was just the cost, the financial piece of, you know, there's those things where if you're low income, etc., there's scholarships and financial aid, which is really like the icing on the cake. And then there's a cake of life. You have to be able to afford shelter, you have to be able to afford food, you have to be able to afford these different things to live in order to show up and be in class, in order to have somewhere to do your homework, in order to study, in order to be successful in those ways. And so I think like not really anticipating those things and having to go through those things, or what we were going through when I was a child, what the reality of our situation was, because that
Mm-hmm.
was guarded from me, and not having to navigate that or understand those pieces like it was hard, because then I did have to navigate that into my earlier
Once you got
adulthood.
older,
Yeah,
you had to navigate it on your own without actually having seen it being dealt with before.
or the resources to navigate it or the
Right.
understanding. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Right. Okay. That's okay. So, and we had kind of touched on this earlier, about the support, and finding a way to ask for it. Real quick, I'll tell you about a quick lesson I learned, but I definitely have a question. So, I'm constantly going to doctor's appointments, and my speech therapist is responsible, or is the one who helps me navigate and find the words
Mm,
to be able to express how I'm feeling and what I'm going through, so I'm able to articulate it to my doctors to figure out my need, right?
yeah.
And that's just with one situation. But I was thinking about it earlier. I said, how many times do people who are encountering, who are, yeah, um, pain,
Yeah.
any kind of pain, so not just mine, mine happens to be physical pain, right?
Yeah.
But when you're going through mental, emotional, spiritual pain, it's hard to find the words.
Yeah.
It's hard to be able to find the words to like figure out like what it is, what your needs are. Like we want to, like asking for help is hard.
Yeah. Talk about it.
It's very hard. And then when you are even, I couldn't imagine having to ask for help as a child, even as I reflect, because you don't know what you need. I just got
That
here.
part.
I
That
just got
part.
here. I've been here for 12 years. That's it.
It's like asking for the help that you don't even know what you're asking for
Right.
because you don't really understand the I mean the levels of the things that you're going through and how deeply woven it is. And I think that as a young person you start to internalize things that are systematic,
Mm.
things that are societal, things that you have no control over, but
Mm-hmm.
still they impact your life.
Right.
And you're not understanding how this is impacting your life or how you're continuing to make an effort and continuing to fall short or continuing not to open the door that you're hoping that you're going to be able to open.
I did air quotes on fall short because I feel like it's a
Yes.
cognitive distortion. Like as a kid,
Yes.
like you
That's
said,
true.
we'll internalize it,
Yeah.
and we think that we have power or control over this, or somehow we're old enough or to play a factor in our current situations when really we're just living in a world that was built for us.
Yeah.
Until we get to this age now where we are able to be the creators and the cultivators of the lives of not only ours, but just like in your situation of your profession, you're able to cultivate the lives and help. And I loved how you said it earlier, partner.
Yeah.
Partner. I am definitely adopting that, like definitely partnering with youth now to help them navigate through the same things.
Yeah. And honestly, like I think that it has been like a learning. One of the young people in one of the meetings we were in, we were having this really amazing conversation, and they had said something really amazing about how we're all learners and we're also doers. So as we're continuing to do this work, we're also learning, and so at times we have to have transformative grace for each other. We have to think
Mm.
about that. It was Jerome Richardson. He, Minnesota teen activist, but also just activist nationally and globally. Super amazing young person. But like when he was talking about that, I was thinking about that because we are continuing to learn, and as we're learning, how are we implementing that in our doing? But also, how are we having grace for people as they're also learning, as they're
Mm-hmm.
also like leaning in and starting to figure out those different pathways or ways or things that maybe are better practices and in the present time because the things that we thought were best practices are kind of outdated now, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And learning, and I feel like giving grace to others, like you said, we're
Yeah.
all learning, and then turning around and giving grace to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
for not knowing the questions to ask, because then um, sometimes in my personal experience, feeling guilty or feeling like, oh man, I dropped the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But I only used the resources I had at the moment to do whatever I could, you
That's
know?
right.
And so with that, like I have a question like what were what were some of the things that, like, now that you have more experience, we a little seasoned in life,
We got a little flavor.
some
You
people
know
call
what
it
I'm
age
saying?
or whatever,
A
but
little sauce.
yeah. What are the questions that you would have kind of told yourself to ask? Like if you were your older self speaking to your younger self and saying, "Hey, now I know the questions I would have asked." What does that look like? What questions would you have asked yourself?
Well, I don't know the questions I would have asked. No, but if I think about it, I think that like I would have asked more about uh, the discipline needed in certain areas as far as like, just bills and understanding how do you get in a consistent schedule, or how do you understand these different things or different systems. I think for me it was kind of a struggle. Like, I had to learn how to rent an apartment and how to do a deposit and stuff like that. When I was younger, and I think like at first on it was hard because people kept telling me no. Like, we're not going to rent to you because you don't have any history. And I'm like, okay, so what do I do? Who do I talk to? So I think I would ask more questions about that, like ask more questions about guidance, that mentorship. And I think that often when we think about mentorship, it's like on a surface level, but deeper mentorship. And so I say I don't know the exact questions, but I know around the conversations that I definitely want to talk about. Because I do think that deeper reflection will probably be needed for those solid questions, because I think there was so much going on. And
Like,
there was,
what do you mean as far as your parents? There was so much that they had going on, or
I mean,
what do you mean?
I'd say yes, my parents, but really just like all of the adults around me.
Right.
There's my parents, there were aunts, grandparents. There are people, there are teachers, there are people in the system, if you will, county, state. I think there are a lot of moving pieces. And as a child, that's a lot coming at you. I think
Mm-hmm.
as a teenager, too, as you're starting to understand certain things and little bits and pieces
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make sense of things and put that puzzle together, kind of makes you crazy sometimes. And
It
so
it does.
I think all of that all at once. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, like, because I was guarded from some things and things I probably should have been told, but maybe they didn't have the understanding of how to tell me or the words and how to articulate that to a young person. Because I think the reality of that is my guardians, my grandparent and my parents, there were things they couldn't teach me or do because they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And what they don't know, they don't know.
Come
And
on,
so
that's the
I'm
thing.
not gonna knock them for that. It's because it's all love, and I think they did their best. And that my grandma did her best for sure in that aspect. But
Look at you. Come
it's
on, they did
hard.
their best.
Oh, she gone. Because
They
I
did a
always give
damn
her
good job.
flowers. They did a good job.
They did a good job, even with the things that they didn't know. And I think that that's
Exactly.
something that we get to see in hindsight as time goes on too. Is that even sometimes like what our parents and guardians, what we think that they're not providing for us in that moment,
Yeah.
it will come full circle. My father, I will always reference my dad. He always gave good gems, and he used to always tell me, "Keep on living."
Yes.
You think you know all the answers. You think that you got this figured out. He wouldn't even try to prove me wrong. That used to make me so mad. I'm like, what? He'd be like, just keep on living, and you gonna find out soon enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And always greener on the other side.
No, come on,
I always used to think that, like, okay, you saying that, whatever, but the amount of times that statement has been true.
boy. And they statements come back and
Learn
slap you on
now.
an idle Tuesday. You be like, what?
I've learned now, though. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
grass probably gonna be greener on the other side of this, so let me just tread lightly.
Right, right. With all the confusion, because I wanted to make sure I asked this question, which I feel like this is something that people encounter, and especially this is like I really feel like this is tailored towards the young folks right now, the young adults who feel like we know everything.
Mm,
I say we. I'm too grown. I don't even want to say grown. That's how I know I'm grown. I don't even want to say it. Like, but in younger
we grown
years,
up. We grown.
yeah, because I can look back at myself and I could say you thought you knew a lot more, or the frustration that you had um,
Yeah.
from the feeling of that the people in my life weren't giving me enough of the tools that I needed to be successful. So now I can tell that I'm growing older and maturing because that anger is subsiding. That feeling of guilt is subsiding. That feeling of being upset with myself for not being better. I used to try to be like, you guys didn't teach me what I was going to do. I'm going to be way better than, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm going to be better. I put it in my mind. It was nothing against competition against those around me, but definitely it was something to prove to myself because I didn't want to be in the situation we were in so bad.
You know, as you speak of that, there's something that I did long for as a young person. I think about that now. And I think about, how I'm doing that or not doing that in the current work that I'm doing. Because definitely not going to be perfect in the work that we're doing, right? And so we need those moments to debrief and to understand where can we be better, how can we enhance our position. And there's, I mean, full transparency, over the last few months, there's been times where there have been young people that have challenged me in ways that, where I've had to stop and reflect and like, okay, what do I do? What's the next step? How can we, like, what's the conversation we need to have to move forward? And those conversations are hard but so necessary. So we do need to move forward. Excuse me, it's going through faster. We do need to move forward to get to the next piece. And I think that even when I think back with my family and stuff and thinking about the resources they could give, they couldn't give, I do think about that transformative grace that young person was talking about. Because I really didn't understand that when I was going through so much.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, they did have the resources, they did have the tools.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and realizing that they didn't have those things now, I still think a piece of me longed for that fight, the fight to get those things that I still feel was lacking. And I do feel like, at a time we get comfortable. We get comfortable, and maybe some things are just too much. And so, like, I think that looking back, there's a lot of the adults in my life, they didn't fight for the things that, I'm fighting for now. And they maybe that wasn't on their radar and their mind, because maybe we had different experiences growing up, if you will. But, like, I think that I really longed for that when I was younger, when I was involved in model assembly, model United Nations, learning about politics and understanding how gun control is impacting our communities. We were talking about healthcare and ethanol and gun control at 12 years old. And so I long for those conversations with the different adults in my life. And when I bring those things up, it kind of would be shut down or like, not really interested. And I think that, like, young people now, like, they long for that, for us to be just as interested in the things that they're interested in, but also to put action to that, right? And I think that in order to do that, we can't just have transformative grace, we have to have transformative action. And so we have to transform how we do things. We have to transform the normal. Like, things that we see as, well, it's how things have been, or it's just traditional. I think that's okay with the touch of change. It's okay with the touch of different. And that's hard. I think it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me. It was hard for me to, like, in those moments of reflections, but it's so necessary. And I think that when we think about young people, I think that's really amazing, because every generation of young people continues to remind us that. I think that's a consistent message from youth, that as the generations go on, is that, well, this needs to change. And we need to hear that and listen and start to implement those things. When I was younger, I wanted the adults in my life to lean in to some of the things I was interested in, and to say, like, yeah, this is impacting us, because it was. And I didn't understand it enough, but I understood it a little bit. And I wanted to have those conversations, and so I could do more, or could, not feel a little bit crazy, I feel like. But also I feel like so I could be ready when those things came at me a lot harder as I started to grow. And I think that, like, that's trauma. There's a lot of trauma that comes with that. And as we get older, we tend to navigate that trauma, until we heal from it. But even sometimes after we heal from it, in quotations, if you will, we're still navigating it in little ways.
Yeah, and just real quick, like, something that I've learned is, like you said, the air quotes of healing. Healing is, to me, what I've learned is that healing, the definition of healing, is when your mind, body, and soul move together on one accord. So with that definition, and shout out to the Mayo Clinic, because that was on the wall. And
okay.
That's what I learned.
Somebody probably plugged them with it.
Yeah. Somebody
go ahead and elevate that message.
Yeah,
love to see it.
You know
what I'm saying? Talk about it.
And then ultimately, so that means that we're always healing. Because you always have to check your mind, you always have to check your body, and you always have to check your soul, your spirit. To make sure that they're all aligned. And it don't take nothing for one of those to get out. It don't take. It could take a headache for them not to be moving together. It could take having a bad day and flicking someone off in traffic for them not to be moving together.
Bad days.
It could be being overwhelmed. And you know what I'm saying? Having a moment where your PTSD is making itself very known.
Anxiety attack.
an anxiety attack for
Yeah.
anything, and then it's the calming then of getting your mind, like checking in with yourself to see if your mind, body, and soul can move together. If you can
Yeah.
calm them down, get them on the same rhythm.
Get back aligned.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Um, and and so, like I said, it's just a continuous thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever reach. In my mind, the way I kind of look at it is, I'm never gonna reach a moment where I'm fully healed. I'm always healing. I'm always healing. Because it's always checking in. I'm always as long as I'm checking in with myself, I'm healing. And
Ooh, I like that. I like that because I think that I ain't gonna be fully healed until I get through those heavenly gates. That would be.
that's healed.
We good. We healed. We here. We've landed.
Right.
You got me there. Do it. I like that. I like that. I'm gonna capture that. I might post that
Please,
a little bit.
please
Okay.
take it and implement it.
Heard you.
You
Heard
know,
you.
like use it. Like,
I'm a look. You know me. I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a really useful tool for me. So I just encourage anybody, if you're hearing this falls on you, just keep that in mind. Um, I we were I love that we talk about the youth. Personally, and I'm a little selfish. I'm a little biased on that too because the younger version of me had to go through healing, um, and the anger and frustration and all of that negative feeling that came from those moments had to be put to rest,
Yeah.
not just healed. Like that had to be done and over with to move forward and to step into what I would call the developing part of my life. Like where I was able to develop into who I wanted to be in the young professional and kind of turn around the narrative.
Yeah.
Um, and to not look at it in a sense where like it was a competition, even in being in competition with myself, like being better. So it was the point to like, how can I make sure that I'm full enough to be a useful tool?
Mm.
You know, to turn around, how can I help?
Yeah.
I always talk about customer service and how you have to customer service everyone. You have to customer service your way through life in a way.
And you really do live that out. Like it's like in everyone you talk to. You know, you're very sweet. You're very open. You're very welcoming. You're receiving, and I would say like you live that out.
Oh, thank you. I
And,
appreciate that.
period.
You already know what it is because you do the same thing.
I mean, I'm working my way up there, but there's levels to it. You really got me. You got me there though.
On the customer service step. Um, no, but I get checked because sometimes it's important to be real and not just customer service people. So that's something I admire about you. You will turn around and you're real with it. Like, that's my brother. So keep in mind, he didn't have to be real with me a couple times. You know what I'm saying? So this ain't. Our relationship has always been great. It's always been love. It's always been growing.
All love, always. Heck
But
yeah.
a part of growing is, knowing how to be able to articulate exactly how you feel
Yes.
in that moment. And that's something that I feel like you do really well. Which, as I grow to, you're very welcome. As I grow to get to know you more and more, I get to understand, I get to see where that comes from. Like, oh, okay. Like I could see why you would value your ability to articulate your feelings and to let it be known. Because now I'm learning like it wasn't always there. You didn't always have the words,
Yeah.
but now you do, and now you value that.
That's real.
So that's something.
That's real.
Look, I know it is. I know it is. And so I love that I'm able to get to know that. And I think that people you should want to sit down and have conversations with your friends and your family to understand and get that background story to know why they value the things that they do.
Yeah.
So you can know how to, you can know how to just share space with them and to be able to help them.
You know how they're thinking, what they're thinking about, why they're thinking about things, the way they're thinking about things. And it's so much easier to have conversations and build relationships that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we start to, like, I think when I got older and I started to talk about politics a lot more in the family, people started to call me in the family that never would call me about anything other than like, let me get some sometimes if they needed that or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We got family we love. And they started calling me and asking me about politicians in their area, who's running for city council, who's going to be their House representative, who's going to be the senator for the state.
You
And
see?
I'm like, let's talk about it.
Because you
You know,
already
let's have
knew.
this conversation. I thought that that was awesome, right? Because that was just a pathway to other conversations we started to have, and building that deeper relationship. And I think those moments are so important when you can grasp onto something. And it's really like, I think sometimes, and I didn't realize this, and I thought about this when this young person was talking about that transformative grace. You know, there's a lot of times when I was younger, I expected certain adults to have it, to know it, to like be able to respond. And I think having a lot of adults in my life that did not have the resources, did not have the knowledge, was not taught, was kept out of being taught.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like kept away from actually gaining that knowledge that they didn't have it. They couldn't do those things, and that angered me. It made me angry for a long time. There were certain people that I was really angry with until I understood, and that's hard
Mm-hmm.
because then you can't build relationships, and then it puts a gap sometimes or a barrier, if you will, in between those relationships that you should be able to build and foster.
Mm-hmm. So, $1 million question would be, if you had to speak to somebody who is very angry in their situation right now because the people that are around them aren't equipped with the knowledge, or they might be feeling like out of place, if you will, in their own home, sitting next to their own family and feeling alone, or in their friend group feeling alone, and those people around them, they don't feel supported.
It's a
What
loaded question. No,
what would you say to them? What would you say to them as a key, or what tool could you give them in that situation?
well, I think there's a couple different levels to that. I think there's a couple of different ways we can go at that, right? I think if I'm talking to a young person and they're telling me that, and I have some type of relationship with them,
I want to do young Quincy.
you want to hear. Oh, so from my young self.
Yeah, I want
I
you to
was
tell
a young
yourself.
person talking to a young person.
Yeah. If you were
Oh,
you, now you're giving a gem to the young person. I mean, it could be young Quincy.
okay. I mean, if I was young Quincy talking to another young person.
You now Quincy talking to young Quincy.
Oh, okay.
And young
I was
Quincy's
definitely
frustrated.
that different. Well, okay, like
Yeah, young Quincy's frustrated. He's like, nobody around me is taking me seriously right now, and I don't feel supported, and I'm angry, and y'all don't know what y'all talking about. I feel like I'm the smartest person in the room, and it means I probably need to get out of this room,
I
and
would
you're
do
angry.
I would go at it the same way. I would do the same thing. I mean, if it were young Quincy or a different young person, I would want to mentor and like I don't want to say be that young person's friend, but help them to understand things. Talk to them. Foster those conversations and those frustrations, understand them, and then work through it with them. I think there's not one surface way to answer that because it does need a deeper response. If a young person really is telling me all of that, then I want to have a conversation, a deeper conversation, to really understand, what could I do? Because I think like there's a lot there, but I think too like immediately that young person's going to need me to dive in deeper with them, and so that's what I'm going to do initially. It's like, okay, stop what I'm doing and try to understand more. Try to latch onto the need, because I think throughout the frustrations, throughout things that young people are saying that they're frustrated about, there's often a need in there. Like if they're feeling alone, no one's talking to them. They feel like they're the smartest one in the space. People are probably not responding to them in the way that they feel like they need to be responded to. And so, really breaking that down. What type of response are you looking for? What are you hoping to hear? What are you hoping to talk about? When you say you feel alone, what moments are those in? It's like that when you come home. Do you feel alone at school, or do you feel alone when you're out of your house as well?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just when you're at home? I think really diving in deep to really understand that, because I think that it's going to take that deeper context, but that deeper connection and a deeper relationship to be able to get to that point of resolve.
Those are great questions to for them to self reflect. So what I'm hearing, so like most definitely. So I will say this: if
In my opinion, I should say.
right, right. I mean, yeah, it's me and you up in here. It's
Right.
all about our
You're right.
opinions.
You're right.
But just real quick, what I'm taking from that, if there is a youth that's out there that may, youth and or adult, because this applies to adults as well.
That's right.
If you feel like you're in the wrong room or not supported, um, or just trying to navigate through it, and you feel like you might need some more support, I think all of those questions, I guess, as far as action items, those questions are the ones to reflect on.
Yeah.
Finding out what your needs are, finding out what you're looking for, finding out what the end result would be, and then to back that up, find a mentor.
Yeah.
Find somebody who that you can learn from and pull things from. I have always said it after I've always heard it. If you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That part.
So move around and find the support. And we always talk about this on Namaste Grinding. Your people are out there. The people that have the same vision, the same goal, the people that can help you get to where you want to be, they're out there.
Talk about it.
They're out there. You don't have to worry. You don't have to try to. You don't have to. I'm going to say you have to put in the work to find them. You do have to put in the work, but you don't have to doubt that it's possible. Yeah. So, and just watching it all come full circle for you that way to from being the youth who felt that way to now being the youth that's turning around and giving resources it's always been a part of my mantra. So I love to see you do that. And that mantra is be who you needed when you were younger.
Yeah.
Put in the work. Be that resource. You felt like you needed somebody to give you them answers. Quincy, my boy, you have become the person who's out here giving them the answers and the resources that they need.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. No, thank you. As someone who was at one point in time that lost youth, who felt like they needed someone, I would have loved it had you walked through my door and said, hey, I need to challenge you. Here are some questions you might want to ask yourself so we can help get you to where you want to be, to help me articulate my needs.
Yeah.
So, like...
And understand your expectations.
Yeah.
And, I do think that, like, young people do have sometimes expectations that we often give them. We give them unrealistic expectations often. And so they do expect certain things that harm them in the long run when those aren't fulfilled. And then I will say, like, adults need to do better for youth, by youth, and, like, show up more for youth so that youth can also find ways to, be their best selves.
And grow up and pour into people, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Man, this has been a great conversation.
Drop it like it's hot.
Let me tell you, show will drop this episode like it's hot. Show will. And I can't wait to do so.
You already know how we do.
Look, they don't know. They're not even ready. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm glad that we had this conversation, but we have so many great conversations. It's almost like we could start a podcast off of those.
You right.
Look.
You said nothing but a word.
Look. But before we jump off of here, is there anything that you want them to know that's coming up within your organization? Definitely take a time, plug yourself, let the people know a little something that you got coming. If you got anything you're working on, yeah.
Yeah, I am in midterms right now, so busy, but one of the things that I'm working on that's been dear to my heart for the last couple of years is the youth stipend pilot. And it's really looking at a different way of showing up for young people who are experiencing homelessness. And I was a young person who had experienced homelessness. And I was a young person going through homelessness. I had jobs while I was going through homelessness, 2 jobs. And I couldn't get a place. I couldn't figure out that system. And different youth programs wouldn't support me. I didn't qualify for their programs because I was working. And it was just so many different layers to it. I really just needed extra cash to be able to afford the things. And so being able to do this type of program is really transformative and really, again, dear to my heart. And so, like, what it is direct cash transfers in tandem with youth-directed services. We're talking mental health, a deeper dive into mental health, substance use, physical health, holistic services. We're talking about living skills. How do you be a good tenant? How do you articulate things to your property management or your landlord or people that you live next to? How do you cook? How do you, those different things, and really how do you live well? And just those different services and resources that young people need in tandem with that cash to be able to go and find a place that is not run down, where the doors do lock in the front of the building, where they can have some peace and can live their lives and really mobilize upward, right? Because that's what we want. We want them to be amazing people in our communities and be able to have the things that they need. And so, really, a different way of showing up for them. And I'm really excited about it because we're at the NPS in Minnesota. Out of the 144 direct cash transfer pilots happening, we're the only state that is doing it in an urban, rural, small city, like in an indigenous community. So, indigenous community provider, Duluth, northern St. Louis County, and Hennepin County. And I think that's good because we see it here as it's not just a Hennepin County thing or a St. Louis, but it's really the whole community. We want this to eventually go to scale throughout the whole state because it's not just happening in Hennepin County and St. Louis County, but it's really happening across our state.
Okay. Okay.
Youth Prize.
Okay. So right there it is. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
so tap in with Youth Prize to definitely find Quincy and be able to help support that initiative.
Yeah.
And
or just
maybe
tap in with the things I'm doing to follow me on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Quincy-Powe, Powe. For the last name. But yeah, tap into all the things I'm doing because I'm also doing amazing things outside of that. Tap into the Urban League Young Professionals. I'm saying Twin Cities, we really moving and shaking things here and being transformative again. And we have some amazing things coming up with the Urban League, especially the national conference where you're able to meet so many amazing Black professionals across the states, which I went for the first time last year and blown away. But it made me
Inspired.
It made me feel so happy and just proud of the work that we're doing here. And yeah, tap in.
Definitely. So definitely. I'm also a young professional, y'all. So
You
make
know
sure
what
you
I
guys
say
tap
it.
in. But this has been a phenomenal episode. I thank you so much for sliding on me, pulling up to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you guys, I already said the like, subscribe, and share. But more importantly, take what you needed from this, write it down, and then put the plan into action.
That's right.
That's the biggest thing. And we definitely found here that, once again, I'll say it again, you are supported in whatever there. If you're looking for a different lifestyle and you're looking to change things, and you're in the valley and you needed just a little bit of help with that namaste grinding mindset, we're here. We got you. Make sure you tap into us, and thank you so much for watching another episode. Namaste, y'all.